This week, we're talking about Operation Fortune, Mario Kart, and everybody's favorite Roland FP10 digital piano. And now your host, Mike Indeglio.
What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly. I'm Mike Indeglio. That's good old Keith Varney, and this is just a sneak peek at two geeks talking about some of the things getting them through the week that got them through last week. Lots to talk about today. We're going to keep it brief. That's what they always
We
say.
have a hard out for a Boston Bruins hockey game, so
Today's also the start.
Mike can keep talking. I'm going to wink out.
Today's also the start of the pool play for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, which I know that is just one of Keith's favorite things.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a sport.
Yes. This is when, during spring training, when people are just getting their swings back, we all get together for basically the World Cup of Baseball, which is a thing.
I mean, but is it a thing? I mean, does any other country have any chance again? I mean, I guess Japan would, because they have
Japan,
baseball.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
The Korean teams are really great.
But Puerto Rico is us. They have a separate team?
Yes. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the third World Baseball Classic that's been like, kind of, they're doing it big, and we've only won one. So,
wow.
There
I
you
guess
go.
Puerto Rico's like, all right, if you refuse to make us a state, then we're going to kick your ass in
and one of the
baseball.
best players in the league is this guy, I can't pronounce his first name, but Otani. He's one of the first two-way players in a long time, Keith. So he's an incredible ace pitcher, and then he turns around and can play in the field because he bats. He's he led the American League in home runs. So he's like a freak.
What? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
all
it's
right.
pretty cool.
That's exciting.
Anyway, that's a thing. That's not what's on the list for today. Today, we're talking about my trip down to see my aunt in South Carolina, and I ended up seeing a movie that I didn't even know was a movie, and I bet you didn't either, but I'm here to tell you about it.
I can't wait to hear.
Talk a little video games, old video games, which is something Keith started last week, and now it's my turn. And then we got some Broadway theater and music to wrap it up. Keith, how you doing this week?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, you know.
You were feeling a little under the weather last time.
I was feeling a little under the weather, but I feel better. I never tested positive for COVID. My folks are are hanging in there. You know,
That's great to hear.
They're going through it, but they're like totally fine. They're hanging in there. So the state of Vermont is actually incredibly proactive. I mean, yes, I mean they're older, they're in their 70s and have pre-existing conditions and stuff. But the state like called them a couple of times to check in on them. They mailed them an oxygen meter, like an O2 sensor, and so they're able to actually track their progress as they're going. Their oxygen's fine the whole time, so all is well there.
I've been sick for now going on a month. I keep getting better, but then can't quite shake the gunk. So I feel like the antibiotics that were prescribed to me didn't quite get the job done, and I probably need more.
You can't shake the gunk.
Yeah. Makes it all kind of suck. So anyway, Keith, I went down to South Carolina. It was CEO Jen's birthday.
That's right. Happy birthday, CEO Jen.
Thank you, everybody who left comments last week. She appreciates them. So anyway, it was her birthday, and I had suggested, because she shares a birthday with her mom, and her mom is all by her lonesome down in South Carolina, and North Carolina, excuse me. They were all blurred together.
Oh, no, those are two very different states.
Yeah, well, so
Sorry.
I suggested we go down and spend their birthdays together, but my aunt also lives in Washington, North Carolina, which is in the middle of nowhere, in a town called Chocowinity, which is a cool place. And so we went down, we saw Jen's mom, we hung out with her 112-pound Doberman.
Nice.
And then we drove on a little 2-lane road, 2.5 hours from where Jen's mom lives to Chocowinity to see my aunt. And it was rural.
I definitely feel like a missed opportunity because like you're doing all the research for my musical, which takes place in rural North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I really should have like hopped into your trunk and like taken pictures as I went.
A lot of lovely people. A lot of, if I was being judgmental, a lot of people didn't seem as lovely, but I didn't speak to them, so I don't want to pass judgment. But the people I interacted with, very lovely. So we were looking to
bless their hearts.
Yeah, we had a lot of plans for Tuesday, which was Jen's birthday. But on the Monday we were there, we were just kind of looking for something to do. And turns out, Keith, not a lot to do in Chocowinity. And Washington, there's a couple of nice restaurants. So we had some hors d'oeuvres. We had a couple glasses of wine. And then my aunt said, "You want to go to the movies?" Sure. It was cheap. So we decided to go see a movie. I didn't want to see the new Marvel. I'm not looking forward to Ant-Man. I'm like, man, not feeling it. I just saw Creed 3, the Man Called Otto, the Tom Hanks movie that's out.
Right.
I have that on my screener box over there, so I didn't want to go see that in the theater. So the only thing left in this smaller theater was a movie called, and let me get it right because I've already forgotten. That was the joke. We kept forgetting the name of the movie. It was called Operation Fortune, Rue de Guerre. All right. This is a Jason Statham joint.
I see that.
Directed by Guy Ritchie, who's, well-known action director. A lot of style in his films. And also we see everybody's favorite, however hard to pronounce his name, Cary Elwes. And, of course, Hugh Grant right there staring at us. This looks to be, from the poster, which is all we had to go on, a spy-type thriller.
Right. Looks like, it looks spy. It looks action. Maybe a heist movie. Could be a heist movie.
So we're like, let's give it a
Aubrey
run.
Plaza in the...
Aubrey Plaza, yes.
Okay.
Let's give it a go, is what we decided. So, Keith, when I say my expectations were low, they were low. Didn't even get popcorn or a drink because we wanted the option to just get up and go if it was not good.
Wow.
So let me give you a little plot summary here from the Wikipedia. A gang of Ukrainian mobsters managed to steal a device known as the Handle. It's worth a lot of money. The British government, this special team run by good old Cary Elwes, puts together a crack team of people, and they go on a super heist to get this MacGuffin, basically.
Oh, that's all right. So we were right. It's like James Bond.
Exactly what you think. It's James Bondy, but with your more punchy punch because you got your Jason Statham, and a little bit more quippy than James Bond. A little more humor here because you got your Hugh Grant, who's the big bad, I'll just say. Right. And you got your crack team of spies. Statham usually works with one group of people, but for reasons he can't work with them, so he gets teamed up with Aubrey Plaza and this other gentleman whose name I have.
Not a bad thing to get teamed up with.
Nope. So we also starring Josh Hartnett. You don't see him in the picture. He comes into play. Hugh Grant, Aubrey Plaza, Jason Statham, Cary Elwes, and this guy listed as Bugsy Malone. That can't be right, but that's what he's listed. That's okay. Maybe that is his name.
The actor's Bugsy Malone?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. We are just like outing ourselves as old white guys so hard right now.
Okay. Yes. He's playing the role of anyway.
He's a rapper.
Yeah. His name's Bugsy Malone, I guess.
Yeah. His name is Aaron Davies, better known by his stage name, Bugsy Malone. Okay. He's a British rapper and actor from Manchester, England. He was born on December 20th, 1990. All right.
Very good actor. Very good actor. And here's the thing, Keith. This movie was great. It is exactly what you think it's going to be. And in typical Guy Ritchie fashion, the action sequences are stellar. Some great chase sequences. Much funnier than it has any right to be. I forget every time. I always undersell Jason Statham. He is a box office guy because he's excellent.
He's funny.
He's very funny. The action stuff is good, but he's also a really good actor. He has great chemistry with Aubrey Plaza. There's like a weird subplot that I think got edited out where they're sort of like flirt with each other, but it doesn't really come of anything. It's kind of silly. The dialogue, for the most part, pretty well written. I think the script's pretty good. The stuff they give to Aubrey Plaza to sell is terrible. Her dialogue for some reason is horrific. But Aubrey Plaza
did she improvise it all? Because I would imagine she might have known.
No, it's too on the nose.
The problem is she didn't improvise at all.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to make her like sultry sex, like kind of I think a spoof on the Bond girl type thing.
Right, the femme fatale.
But she's not. She's like a computer hacker. That's what it's weird. But she rises above the material, which is good. The rest of the stuff, the Hugh Grant stuff, the movie is worth it just to see Hugh Grant playing something completely different. He is chewing the scenery up, down, left, right. He's given a very John Larroquette-esque performance here. Nice. And I am here for it. The twisty twists aren't so complicated that it stretches imagination. It doesn't go credulity. It doesn't go too deep into the MacGuffin. They kind of recognize it's a MacGuffin. It is what it is, but it's interesting enough to keep you going. Here's the thing. It is a tight 2 hours, which is exactly what you want for this type of movie. Not too much, not too less. The third act is a little abrupt, but that's okay because by that point, you've kind of seen the thing. They toss it up for a potential of a sequel. I'd watch another one. It was pretty good.
Wow. Mike's ready to go for a sequel.
Here's what I think is cool about it. They held this movie. It was supposed to be released back, I believe, in January of 2022, a full year ago. But they wanted to recut the film to adjust the portrayal of just sort of like
Ukrainian
of the Ukrainian terrorists. Yeah. They had to kind of and truth be told, they did a pretty great job. They made them much more generic and not specifically located, and they're just kind of like goonish thugs. This movie was a lot of fun. Because
otherwise it's just like a Putin propaganda piece.
And for those of you whose interest is piqued, here's the best part. It's already on VOD. By the time we didn't know it was a thing, so I probably wouldn't have seen it in the theater because it's on the VOD, and I probably would have just waited till I could get it not on the VOD to stream it somewhere.
Right.
Instead of having to purchase
for every movie ever.
Yeah. But here's the other best part, Keith. We were in the middle of nowhere. It was a Monday at 1:00 in the afternoon. It was just us. So it was the four of us in a huge theater, awesome sound, seats kicked up on the reclining chairs. I think it was like $6. It was just so great. So if you're just looking, you got gajillion choices on the Netflix, on the HBO. Maybe you're like, Keith, you don't even leave the house. To go to the movies.
Not to movies, that's true.
Don't sleep on Guy Ritchie's Operation Fortune Rue de Guerre. Guy, I know you watch. I know you're a longtime listener, watcher. We got to talk about the naming convention of this film. It's objectively terrible. Forget it already. And the Jason Statham movie, Guy Ritchie, Hugh Grant, isn't good enough. But it's better than this, Operation Fortune. Get this, Keith. The protagonist, Jason Statham's first name is Fortune.
Wow.
But it's still terrible. Change the name. But anyway, good flick.
It's so funny because as Guy is a regular watcher, he just texted me like he was going to give you the hacker part in the next flick.
But I don't have this. I'm not saucy enough.
Well, no, because you just shit in his title.
I did.
That's the problem. Mike has played a hacker on television on multiple occasions.
It's true.
In his own house, in his underwear, and there's photographic evidence to prove.
Yeah, let me tell you this: reality TV, not as reality as you think.
What?
Keith, should I just jump in my next things quick?
Do it.
Okay. Oh, which one is it? Is the question. I'm going to guess this one. Yeah.
Wow.
So, Keith, you might know Mario Kart 8 here. It was first released for the Wii U. Let me get this right on my wiki. It was first released on the Wii U way back. Oh my God. In Japan in 2014, on the Wii U also in 2014, and then reported to the Nintendo Switch April of 2017. So this game is, if we just talk about the Switch version, going on 7 years old, but really
2014 is 8 years old, 9 years old almost.
Yeah, it's almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Nintendo: this game is still full price. They don't discount their stuff, and it's still selling gajillions of copies. I could look up the things, but it's selling. It's always on the top charts. It's selling. For what reason or the other, the Switch never hit with me. I never finished Breath of the Wild, which I know is a huge hole in my backlog. I will get to it at some point. I play some of the Mario games. I dip and dabble on there. But one game I always come back to is Mario Kart. And My sister loves it. We've played since way back on the oh my god, the Super Nintendo, and then we played on Nintendo 64. Then we had some for the 3DS. I've played most of the mainline Mario Kart games. Loved Mario Kart 8. It added some things that were desperately needed, like a much more refined drifting mini game.
Physics
so basically,
are better.
The physics are better, and like you don't just like take these corners. You can like waggle your thing and build up a supercharge and use it as a blast. And different carts using different wheels can give you different attributes. So if you really want to get into the weeds of like setting up your best cart for different courses, you can do that. In addition, there's some defense. Remember, Mario Kart's like basically chaos, as we all know. And God forbid,
that's the whole point.
You get really good and you have a big lead. The computer, we always call it the computer cheat. The rubber banding is pretty insane.
Well, it's designed so that like your super nerd and grandma can play together and have like a competitive match.
When the blue shell comes, when the red shells come, now though there are some defensive possibilities. Like if you have a certain type of weapon and the blue shell's coming, if you time it just right, you can actually defend against it, or a red shell. So they're hard, but it exists. And like you just said, the best part is, so my sister and I love to play. And it's really hard to see my sister outside of her children, and her children aren't like help us out type. My one niece won't even play with her because the whole point is you want to beat all the stages and you want to get 3 stars. In order to get 3 stars, one person has to win first place on all of the races. So what we tend to do, because I've mentioned this many times, Keith, my family's very cooperative. Whoever wins the first race, then the objective of the rest of the players at that point is to defend them the rest of the races so that they can win first place every time so we can get the 3 stars.
Your family is so different from my family.
But my one niece is the rogue operative, Keith. Mm-hmm. She'll agree, she'll swear she's on board, and then she will red shell you at the last second and just destroy you. And we're like, you blew it all!
Okay, so she's me. I love it.
But Keith, you're a completionist awesome. Like the rest of us. Don't you want the 3 stars? You can only get the 3 stars.
Not if it's collaborative. I want the stars for my darn self.
Oh, well, there you go. So, as you can see, it's a ton of fun. But if you got one of those kids, one of the younger kids who wants to play, back in the old days, we would just give them an unplugged controller and let them pretend they were doing something. As they've gotten a little smarter, what you can do on Mario Kart, which is really smart by them, is you can do one of 2 cool things. One, there's a setting so they can use the controller, the gyroscope, so that it's like steering the car, which is kind of fun. Mm-hmm. Or there's a setting you can set that auto accelerates for them and keeps them going straight, so they can never turn around or bump. They're basically like, right. Yeah. So they have all these accessibility options, which is really cool. But the best thing,
bumper bowling, yeah.
The best thing, you're like, Mike, the game's 8 years old. We all love Mario Kart. What's the thing? For $25, I did this a few months ago and forgotten I had done it, maybe longer than a few months ago. And I believe it started in 2022 in January or so. $25, what they started doing is every month or two, they release a new pack of courses. And so now by the end of 2023, and we're getting kind of there, they have released almost all of the Mario Kart courses that have ever been released, Keith, on all platforms are now available in-game, and they've re-upped them to be like, to match the artistic and graphical like vision of the game. So I'm back playing Rainbow Road from the Super Nintendo in new Mario Kart.
Wow.
So all the 3DS courses, all the Super Mario courses, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like because Mario Kart is not like super complex or graphics intensive, it'd be pretty easy to port the courses.
So there are like, I think, and they break them all the different little course packs into different cups. So you have new races and new things to do. It's been just such a joy. And my sister, we keep texting now, and I haven't seen my sister like in a while. And we keep texting ways that we can clandestine lies we can tell her children so she can come over and spend an hour and just play Mario Kart and doesn't have to bring them. So anyway,
amazing.
I've been loving Mario Kart again for the first time.
Right, so this brings me to the question, Mike, how many video game consoles are in your apartment right this minute? Can you just give us a rundown of all of the consoles in your apartment right this minute?
I currently have the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X. My PlayStation 4 has been blessed forward into the universe. So So I don't have that anymore. So that's 2. I've got the Nintendo Switch. That's 3. I've got my gaming PC. That's 4. I think that's it. That's all.
You're the type of guy who has the best system of every manufacturer.
At this given point, yes. At this given point, yes.
That's so, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I'm just not that guy. So I don't get to play Mario Kart. I don't get to play Last of Us because I'm an Xbox guy. And I love my Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in order to get through all the proprietary games, like, you have to spend some serious money.
Well, that's the thing. I pay for Xbox Game Pass, so I don't ever buy a game on Xbox. I only play the free stuff. And I only use my PlayStation for those like big PlayStation exclusives. That's what I do. The Nintendo Switch, we used to have a Wii. We gave that away too. But you know, you wanted to build out your man cave. That's like, as a kid, that's all you wanted. For me, I wanted a nice TV with all of the game systems. And so like, that's what I put together. And here's the thing. I usually like get one game and be obsessed with it. That's still the Harry Potter game for me. But now the Switch is calling me a little bit because of it. But I never play it portable. I can't play portable handheld things. I can't do it. Couldn't do it back in the day. Can't do it now.
Oh, I did it back in the day. I don't
neck.
see any reason for it today. But
true. Most people only use their Switch handheld, which I get. It's cool, but I'm just not out. If I leave the house, I'm not gaming. It's interesting. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah, no, I mean that's all very impressive. Yeah, I haven't played Mario Kart because I don't have any Nintendos. I haven't had a Nintendo system since the original Super Nintendo.
All right, Keith, you went to see a play.
So I did go to see a play last night. I went to go see, I guess now that we have announced it, my ex-wife in Becomes a Woman at the Mint Theater. And it's a really interesting piece because it is it's a lost play by Betty Smith. Betty Smith wrote A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And this was a play that she wrote with some of the characters from that, but she wrote it when she was 19 back in the early 1900s.
Okay.
And it's never been produced, never been performed. And so they found it and they put up a first-class production of it off Broadway and, brought in this amazing cast and did a full, like, real production of it. And it was really interesting as a piece. I mean, I think, like, there are parts of it that feel a little bit like a timepiece because it was written 100 years ago, and parts of it feel like, yep, this was written by a 19-year-old, but also an incredibly talented and incredibly smart 19-year-old. And then it was fascinating to see a first-class production with terrific actors performing this in a play that never got developed. Right? When you write a draft of a play, by the time you get it onto the stage, you've gone through 8 weeks of rehearsal. You've brought in a director, you're developing it, you're shaping it, you're going through previews and trying stuff out for an audience. And so your draft becomes the play on the road between draft 1 and opening night. But in this case, because the author is gone and this is the first presentation of it, they sort of made a commitment not to change the text and not to develop it because the writer's not there. And unlike in TV film where the writer is like, who cares about the writer? They throw your stuff away. In theater, in plays in particular, the writer is the top of the pyramid, and so they chose not to change anything, which was really interesting, and it was a fun it was a fun thing to see, and you could see where that was very successful, and parts of it were like, yeah, if you had the author there, you'd have a chance to sort of develop it a little bit further as you went along. But that brings me to the second part of this story. So Jillian, my ex, covers 2 of the characters in the show. She has a small part in the show every night, but she was hired basically to be the standby for 2 of the larger characters. And one of those characters plays the piano for most of the first act. It takes place in a dime store. And at that point, because it couldn't just play recordings of the popular songs, people wanted to come in and buy the songs. They had a singer there in your dime store. It's like basically your drugstore, your dollar store.
Right. The five and dime. Yep.
Five and dime. Well, exactly. And so what they would do is like, I want to buy that song. Can you play it for me so I can hear it before I buy the sheet music to the song? And so there'd be somebody there whose job it was just to stand there and sing these pop tunes, and somebody had to play piano. And so the main character of the show is the singer. And so all through the first act in there, she's singing a whole bunch of tunes from that era. And so the character that Jillian is covering has to play the piano live, all of these like old-timey ragtime stuff and sort of little snippets of stuff all through the whole first act. So anyway, so she was coming off a show in Florida and booked this one. And because she was a cover, she didn't get the full rehearsal process. So she came in like a week and a half before they were moving into the theater and starting to do tech. And they sort of like, it's like there's like a song, whatever. You play piano? It's like, yeah, I play piano. And like, turns out, no, it's like 8 different songs and all these crazy keys. And it's like this difficult, like ragtimey kind of stuff.
There's play piano, like I say I play piano, like I can play guitar chords on the piano. Mm-hmm. That's not what they mean sometimes. Most times.
And I was like, no, there's that. So one of the things that we did was we're like, we need another piano so that she can practice and as much time as she wants. And so, which brings us to part 2 of this, she purchased a Roland FP10, which is a Roland digital piano. You see one directly behind Mike in every single episode. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of thought about the Roland FP10. If you're looking for a budget digital piano.
That's the thing you got to start with. This is a budget piano. Like,
yes.
This is not the fancy version. Like you're talking $500. You can get it sub $500 on sale.
Yes. And it's $600 now. It actually went up since you bought it. But we got a used one for about $500. So anyway, digital pianos are very important to me, obviously, as a composer. And I have been playing Rolands for the last 20 years almost. And so what I have behind me here is a Roland FP7F, which is now like well out of date, but it's one of their higher end ones that I bought back in the day for about $3,000 or so. And I still love it. It's great. I mean, at this point, it's almost more of like a MIDI input device because I notate directly, whereas when I bought it, I was doing my demos using all the virtual instruments built into the keyboard. Now that's all MIDI, now that's all VST, now it's all in Pro Tools, and so I don't really need that anymore. But that's also what makes the FP10 appealing. If you're not doing all of that stuff, if you're not trying to gig with it, you're not trying to make it a concert piano, but you need a piano that has really just rock solid, sit down, play the piano. It has really good action that's every bit as good as my $3,000 one from a few years ago. And it has a very solid piano sound. And so if you're just wanting to play piano, you're taking piano lessons, you want to practice or on whatever, you just want it to feel and sound like a real piano. You don't need all the bells and whistles, but it has, other voices and whatever, but it's not really about that. Mm-hmm. It's just sit down, play, go. The Roland FP10, I had picked it out for you guys. And then when this came up, like, let's get another one. Because I actually played it at your house to sort of like feel actually in hand, because there's a lot of great reviews on YouTube you can find. But I'm really impressed with it. I think there's some drawbacks. The speakers are not great, but it doesn't necessarily need to be, right? Because
it has an aux out, so you can hook it up to, like, I have an old cabinet here, so I hook it up to that.
Yeah, you can totally do that to have a fuller sound. It does not have a lot of interactive, like the aux out is a headphone jack. Like you don't have a 1/4 inch out, or the MIDI is through Bluetooth. It doesn't have a MIDI out. The Bluetooth is good. I mean, I like I'm an old hardwired guy just for safety, but it's good. You control the piano with an app on your phone, which is great. But if you're just you got a kid wants to take piano lessons or whatever, and you don't want a huge physical piano, it's great. It's great to practice with. It was perfect for what Jillian needed. And buy the stand.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was.
Yeah, I hate the stand I have, so buy the stand.
So that I bought the, it's another like $150 or so to get the sort of stand with it, but that's I think it's worth it. It looks better and it's much more stable to play on. The other thing you need to get a real pedal. It comes with that little weird kid guitar switch.
Mm-hmm.
You have a pedal. I gave you one.
Did you? You did. I don't know where
I did.
Oh, it's down there. Okay.
Yeah. But they're like $15. It's not a big deal to get yourself a real pedal. That definitely is essential if you want the piano experience. So yeah, I mean, it's great. If this will be a good test. If we are on our stuff, right, there will be an Amazon link to purchase one of these. Where if you do purchase it, it gives us a little boost. It gives us a little help. So those are my thoughts. Definitely, go get one if you're interested. I'm at some point when I'm more successful and I'm in a different tax bracket. So never. I want to get one of the high end Roland cabinet pianos that are just extraordinary. And I used to think that I wanted all the built-in instruments, but that's not a thing anymore. So I literally just want it to be a perfect upright piano, which they're pretty much there now. But that's a $5,000 to $7,000 to $9,000 proposition.
So this was a bizarre thing I did, but it was kind of cool. So it has a very specific, unique, its own piano sound. And so what I ended up doing, because the Bluetooth MIDI is two-way. So I went to the, I might have mentioned this before. It could have been to you, but I went to the during COVID, I went to the national, youth piano competition, which has a name. I don't know off the top of my head, but I went to the Masters division, and they all had to, because, MIDI also captures the touch sensitivity.
It sure does.
So during COVID, and since everybody couldn't get together, they had to video record themselves playing their pieces for the competition, but they also had to submit
probably the Ben Clyburn.
Maybe, yes. They also had to submit the MIDI data. So I downloaded the MIDI data and played it through the piano, Keith. So I was listening to these people, these masters, play their pieces on my piano with the MIDI touches.
Really,
it was really, really cool experience. Now the keys don't move; it's not like a player piano, but just the experience of sitting there, it was. When you record MIDI now, it's as if the human was playing. So really cool.
That's I could talk about that for forever, but because I'm constantly recording and editing in MIDI from the piano, because just very quickly, when you hit that key, MIDI is recording not just the key that you hit, right? And it's not just the duration of how long you hit that key. It's also hitting how hard you hit that key. And that's between 1 and 144. So it's a very long specific scale. And then the duration is another thing. And then it is also doing the same thing with your pedal, which is why you need a real pedal, because a pedal is not just binary on off. It's a whole sliding scale, because it's replicating actually putting the damper pads onto the strings themselves. And so there's a whole mess of different, and so on a real piano you have 3 pedals, 3 different types of dampening, but all you need for real practical stuff is a single pedal, because that also has a gradation up to 100, and that's going to affect every other note and the duration of them, whether you have, and so that's actually really essential data for the performance, but that's all tracked in MIDI. And what I'm doing, when I'm working on my demos for the road home or something like that, when I screw up, I can fix the notes. Mm-hmm. I can fix the duration of the notes. I can delete notes I don't need. I can add other notes. I can change how hard they are, how hard I hit them. But I can also fix the pedal stuff too. So when I mess up on a pedal switch, or it's a little early, or it's a little late, or whatever, I can fix that too on a sliding scale of 100. It is just extraordinary technology, and
the future
that's
is
such a
really
good
cool.
idea, Mike. Yeah. I mean, it's tough because
I was like, I can't play this piano, so let me hear somebody who can. And
no,
COVID,
no.
so yeah.
And I absolutely never use auto tune vocally, because that's what I do for, that's my thing. But the equivalent of auto tune, which is auto clean up all of my screw ups on piano, because I'm not a good piano player. I definitely can auto tune my piano playing, which is awesome. Really, really cool.
Well, Keith, that segues into the last thing I want to mention real quick. Is I assumed that was your rad thing. Do you have another rad thing?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay.
Do your rad thing.
Yeah, so I wanted to, so speaking of budget instruments, picture, if you will, it's 1971, okay? And my dad is 1971, 24 years old at this point. His little sister is, I think she was about 10 years younger than him, so she's 14, okay? They had a pretty rough home life, so, but she was, my aunt went on to do so much more than, like, kind of, you would never, from where she came up, college grad. She's like, she's a day trader. She's a real estate agent. She's made a really comfortable life for herself because she's really smart, inquisitive, and hardworking. Really cool lady, really awesome. So when she was 14, she was learning to play the piano. She was learning to play some other instruments, and she wanted to start learning to play guitar because, as people might know out there, learning musical instruments is kind of like people who are interested in learning multiple languages. It's a different language. It's a different way to activate different parts of your brain. She wants to learn to play guitar. They're very poor. My dad was working in some different way, doing different things. And what he did was he went to a store and he bought, for list price, let's see, it was $79.50 back in 1971. My guess is my dad,
cheap at that point.
No, my guess is my dad either knew a guy or got it for less than $79.
Wink.
But regardless, gave it to my aunt to learn to play. This was a 1971 Epiphone, which is the budget line of the Gibson acoustic guitars. But at that time, there was kind of a rebirth of interest in the instrument. And so Gibson, whose factory is based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, could not keep up with demand. So they, for 1 year, outsourced a company in Japan, Matsuoka, I believe they were called. Sorry, I did my research a few days ago. And they started churning out basically the guitar, but they were using laminate woods and they were cutting corners, and they hadn't been able to, usually they use these little butterbean style tuners on these guitars, but the Matsuoka Guitar Company out in Japan couldn't source them because they were American. They couldn't get them in fast enough for their first line. So they were using classical guitar butterfly buttons. This is how you can tell right away. And then they, instead of using a flexible truss rod, so in the neck of a guitar, there's usually a piece of metal that you can adjust when the weather changes to kind of soften the action or harden the action. But they didn't have that technology, so they just were bolting them on. They were just hard bolting the necks into the guitar.
No. So
it's a really cheap guitar. Okay.
Right.
To prove that point, it's now 40 some years later, and these guitars are worth $180. So they've actually, if you count inflation, they've gone down.
Right. Yes.
But you can't find many of them that are in even remotely decent shape. Guess what? My aunt still had the guitar. So this is not this is not an expensive thing. It was funny is my uncle's a guitar player and he collects some guitars, and he had a vintage 60s Telecaster worth about $15,000 in the same ring. Let me play both guitars. It doesn't sound great. But regardless, my aunt is 7 years old and she gave me the guitar, Keith. So I have right here the guitar my dad bought in 1971. You can see how they have like the
classical
guitar bits on there, but it's in remarkably good shape.
That's in great shape.
Guitar from the 1970s. So I'm thinking of my dad when he was 24. I mean, it's still...
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
It's doing okay. So this is now... So like I said, if you look at behind me here, this Les Paul is basically me purchasing the guitar my dad bought me that I can no longer... that I pawned when I moved to New York. Ironically, the 1998 Les Paul Standard, had I had the original my dad had given me, is worth about $6,000 now. That is not that. This guitar is my electric guitar that I had bought years ago that I still play. This is my Epiphone. It's worth a decent amount of penny. That's my favorite acoustic guitar. Over here, Keith, you might not recognize it, but I bought this for $60 in Indiana on tour with Titanic. So this is a guitar when you met me, I was playing. I've subsequently put guitar...
It's not in frame, but I'll try. Oh, wait, no, it's in the back.
Yeah, it's over here on the side.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And now I will add to my collection my father's 1971 Epiphone guitar.
I love it. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and always have been, that instruments are sacred.
Yes, this is... Well, he touched it. Right?
Yeah.
And my aunt gave it to me, so she touched it.
Right.
And my father had one sister. All of my grandparents are dead. My dad is dead. It doesn't appear that I'm having children, so this is it. This is the last thing I have of him that he touched. That and his wedding ring that I wear. So that's it. That's what I got. So it's really cool. It's super
it's
rad
on a couple of levels. Yeah.
You know, it's not about money. This is
No.
This is when you talk about sentimental value, there is nothing higher. So this is priceless to me now.
No, and I believe that even, I mean, adding the depth of it having a relation to your father is such a huge deal in the family history of it all. But like the pianos that I have played and written on, throughout my adult life, they're like people to me. And like when I replaced, I had a Roland FP5 that I replaced with this FP7F, and the only reason I replaced it is because I had played it so much that the keys, the action literally broke down. It just literally stopped working, and I had to throw it away, and I literally cried when I did. And I think back on it today because I had to throw it away because I didn't have any space for it. Mm-hmm. But today, in my imagination of the future, if I ever have a big studio that I can work in, again, in my imaginary future where I have money, I want to make lighting fixtures out of all of my old digital pianos and like hang them and make light fixtures out of them, because I'm sad that I don't have the actual one, but I can get one of that model.
Yeah, the memories, you remember what songs you wrote on which instruments.
Absolutely.
And one thing you don't realize when you're a kid, or even a young man or young person, is that you really think, if I had a more expensive this, it would sound better. Truth be told, you develop a style that is distinctly you. Like you want to get to the part where if people close their eyes, they could tell it's you playing. That doesn't mean it's great. It's different though. There are people. That's what style is. And the instrument you play on becomes a part of you, and that's what I love about guitars, because and pianos as well. But guitars is that it's wood. It's a natural thing, and so your skin oils patina the wood, discolor certain parts, and additionally, find the cheapest guitar you can find. Right. Go on YouTube for a review, right, and watch an expert play that shitty instrument. It's going to sound like $1 million, right? So, and I've had luthiers, guitar guys who really craftsmen who build guitars and work on them, take these $60 guitars and make them sound like a $5,000. So it's that's not the point. You know what I mean?
And it also it shapes the way that you play. Mm-hmm. I mean, the number of hours I've spent playing my FP5, my FP7, the action on that helps determine the way I play. Mm-hmm. And so like it I don't know, it's hard to explain. It sort of gets ethereal, but it is
that's why everybody, when kids are learning to play guitar, a lot of times their parents want to buy them those small little pocket guitars. I learned on a giant jumbo acoustic guitar, and so you can plop anything in front of me and I can play it. And I feel like that's, those kids growing up, you had that out of tune upright, and you just learned to play piano. That you were gonna, if you were gonna learn, that's what you had.
That's what I did. Yeah, we had basically the equivalent, like a 70s budget upright piano, a Wurlitzer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to play on it, and like the action was really light, and so I tune all my. But that's the thing, I tune all my pianos to have pretty light action because that's what I played when I was a kid. That's what I got used to. All right, so we have to go soon, but I want to just like quickly say one rad thing, just
cool.
a little bit about my personal life. I mentioned before that my wife and I announced publicly this week that we're separated. That we're sort of transitioning to a different type of relationship that won't be a marriage. We're great. We desperately love each other. We're still best friends. We always will be. We're always going to be family. But we're transitioning out of that, and so I was pushing for it. She was not, to sort of publicly post about it because it's been like a year since we made the decision, but it's really awkward. You keep running into people who don't know, and then you're like, do I tell them? Do I not tell them? Is it weird?
I can imagine that's very weird.
It's exhausting, and you also sort of start to feel like I'm not being honest with the world, and like, who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody cares, and in a good way. But anyway, so we did that, and that's sort of a scary, vulnerable thing to do. And it's awkward. It's like profoundly awkward. And you spent months trying to figure out a better way to do it, wishing there was some sort of a more elegant, classier, less tacky way to do it. But there really isn't, right? And you realize that the inherent awkwardity of it is the decision, not how you're transmitting that decision. Anyway, the rad thing that I just want to say, like, it was with all of that, but my friends and family and and especially the people who didn't know already were just incredibly supportive and really cool. And I never doubted for a second that it wouldn't be that way. But it was it certainly was nice to have such a supportive reaction to something like that, and people who got it. Right, because it's a unique situation when you're still best friends and you still live together, but you've just transitioned to a different type of relationship. It's a unique situation, and it begets like, huh? But the people in my life were really cool about that, and so I'm grateful to have that out of the way, and I can it's not something I want to necessarily talk about a lot, but at least I'm not like, my friend's wife okay, this is the situation, this is the deal, and so I don't have to like be weird about it anymore. So I'm grateful to that and for the support of everybody.
Well, I don't know that you were being weird about it. I think, like you said, I think that you were trying to respect two people in a scenario. I think you were probably feeling a little more forthcoming earlier in the situation, but you wanted to make sure that you were both comfortable, and I think that is to be commended, and that shows your compassion and clearly that the two of you have a very love-filled type relationship. So it makes sense, and I think that if it's brought you at least some feeling of authenticity now, a little like weight off your shoulders, and that's great. There's nothing better. Yeah.
So anyway, it was
cool.
The thing itself isn't rad, but people being really cool about it and being really supportive.
Well, that's the point of the segment, Keith, right? Like, Keith and I are choosing to believe that people and their core are actually good.
Yes.
Which is weird. So, which is antithetical to all evidence generally, but
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, there you go, folks. This is K&M Geekly. Like you said, sometimes we get a little nougaty, heart-filled center. I've got my dad's guitar. Keith's feeling good emotionally. We're pushing forward. We're going to hope that you join us next week. You can always watch our other shows if you love what we're putting out there. We talk about Deep Space Nine every Wednesday. This week, will be episode 2 of season 3 of a two-parter. I've been really excited to get back to it. We also look at Keith's Star Trek toys and all of your Star Trek toys. Really cool stuff last week, looking at the DS9 playset Then this coming week, we got some more customs. We know you love those custom shows. And then, you got your Geekly. So you join us on Patreon, patreon.com/K&M. And also, if you're interested in that FP10, it's awesome. It's right here. Check out our Amazon affiliate link below. I think that's everything I have to say. I'm Mike. That's Keith Varney.
What's happening?
Keep on doing the things you find fun. Don't let anybody yuck your yum. And until we see you next, keep on geeking on.
Go Bruins!
World Baseball Classic.
Who cares?